Why would you want to go to Altoona, Pennsylvania? I'm going to tell you why in this video. I'm Roy Smith. I want to tell you about my recent trip to Altoona because it's a great place to go if you're a rail fan or model railroader. As you may recall, I live in Panama City, Panama, but I normally have traveled to Virginia and Pennsylvania every year. When I make this trip, I fly nonstop from Panama to Dulles International Airport near Washington, D.C. As a military retiree, I stay at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. While there, I spend some time visiting my adult children who live in Northern Virginia, and then I drive up to central Pennsylvania to visit my mother. As I said, I normally make such a trip once a year. But thanks to the pandemic, I haven't been able to do so since May 2019. That's a lapse of 3.5 years. What prompted me to make the trip at this time, in spite of the pandemic and personal health issues, was an event called N-Scale Weekend held in Altoona on 17 and 18 September. I'm going to talk about N-Scale Weekend later in this video, but this event wasn't the only thing I did during my 4.5 days in Altoona. I'm going to tell you about all of the things I did while I was there because I think you'll want to do them too if you go there. It took nearly 4 hours to drive from Fort Belvoir, Virginia to Altoona. And when we arrived at Altoona, we checked into the Holiday Inn Express located very near the convention center where N-Scale Weekend would be held. Altoona is a city of nearly 45,000 people in central Pennsylvania. It was founded by the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1849 as a site for a shop and maintenance complex because of its unique location at the foot of the Allegheny Mountains. The railroad runs right through the center of the city. Would you believe it? I grew up only 107 miles east of Altoona. I even graduated from Penn State at State College, Pennsylvania, only 48 miles away. But during all of those years, I never once went to Altoona until now. I scheduled a trip at this time in order to attend N-Scale Weekend, as I said. But I also went to Horseshoe Curve, the club of the Altoona Association of Model Railroaders, and the Railroaders Memorial Museum. On Thursday, September 15th, our first full day in Altoona, we drove to Horseshoe Curve, which is located 5 miles west of Altoona. It took only 15 or 20 minutes to get there from our hotel. There's a gift shop and a museum on the lower level of the historic site, and a great spot to railfan on the upper level. This is just about all you can see of the trains from the lower level at Horseshoe Curve. So, if you really want to see the trains, you have to go to the upper level. In the past, you could get to the upper level to see the trains up close on an incline or funicular, as it is called. The funicular operates with counterbalanced ascending and descending cars that pass each other in the middle when running. But the funicular at Horseshoe Curve hasn't operated in years, first due to the COVID pandemic, and now due to a lack of repair parts. So the only alternative is to climb 194 steps to reach the upper level. Leonor didn't want to climb the steps, so she waited for me at the museum on the lower level. But I was determined to see the trains up close, and that meant climbing the steps. And here I am on the upper level. Wow, what a beautiful view of the mountains of Pennsylvania. There's even a GP9 on static display, as you can see. But of course, watching the trains as they rumble by is the best thing about Horseshoe Curve. Horseshoe Curve is a 3-track railroad curve on the Norfolk Southern's Pittsburgh line, which runs from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The curve was completed by the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1854 after 3 years of grueling labor. Later on, the curve was owned by the three successors to the Pennsylvania Railroad, namely the Penn Central, Conrail, and now the Norfolk Southern. Some 50 or more trains pass by here each day. In fact, I counted 5 trains in one 20-minute span. That's a lot of trains. And to everyone's delight, most of the engineers blow their horns as they pass by. Helper engines couple up to the rear of long trains in Altoona to add power to ascend the grade at Horseshoe Curve. Afterward, these helper engines return back down to Altoona. Horseshoe Curve bends around 3 man-made lakes which serve as reservoirs that supply water to the city. I really like this place. It turned out to be much more interesting and fun than I thought it would be. We ended up spending 3 hours here. We even had a picnic lunch. I will put a link to the Horseshoe Curve website in the video description down below where you can go to learn more about it. We went shopping the next day, Friday, September 16th, because that's what Leonor likes to do.
I like to go shopping.
Well, Leonor, I like to go shopping too, but only when I'm shopping for model trains. Ha! That evening we visited the Altoona Association of Model Railroaders. The club is located in a 2-story building in Altoona. Just beyond that tree line is the Norfolk Southern Main Line. The club has an N-scale layout on the first floor, and on the second floor there's a combined HO and 2-track O-scale layout. Let's take a walk around the N-scale layout. It measures 15 feet by 30 feet. It's called the Benville Tight Fit and Even More Railroad, or BT&E for short. It's a single-track short-line railroad that has interchanges with larger Class 1 railroads. It features prototypical operations with numerous towns, yards, and industries. The layout was once privately owned, but it now belongs to the club. After inheriting the layout, the club expanded it and is continuing to make changes to it. And this is the club's HO and 2-track O-scale layout on the second floor. I was surprised how well the club combined the 2 scales in such a way that they look realistic, running together on the same layout. The club will hold open houses in December, and in fact, it's open to the public every Friday evening from 7:30 to 10:30 p.m. If you ever go to Altoona, be sure to visit the club. It's important to note that the club organized and ran N-Scale Weekend. We will talk about that next, and I will put links to the club's website and Facebook page down below. The next day, Saturday, September 17th, we went to N-Scale Weekend at the Blair County Convention Center. N-Scale Weekend is an annual event sponsored by the Altoona Association of Model Railroaders. If I remember correctly, there were some 140 vendors there and 14 N-track, T-track, and free-mo and modular layouts. Individual members of these groups build modules at home and then come together to assemble their modules into group layouts at shows. As always, the best thing about events such as this one was the chance to meet friends in the hobby. And I met a bunch of them there. Lee Weldon was among the first of the friends I met. Lee told me about his module, then he ran some trains for me. And Lee thanks a million for this gift, a stone hopper produced for Lee by Bluford Shops. Here it is, arriving on my layout and running for the first time. Thanks again, Lee. Here are just a few of the many other friends I met at N-Scale Weekend. Now let's take a closer look at some of those modules. I can't begin to tell you how much fun I had at N-Scale Weekend. If you're an N-Scaler, or even if you're not, this definitely is the show to go to. On Sunday, we went to the Railroaders Memorial Museum in Altoona. This museum is located in the former Master Mechanics Building, built by the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1882. I was also hoping to get back to N-Scale Weekend for a second time that day, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. Also located on the museum grounds is the Harry Bennett Memorial Roundhouse and Rail Yard with its iconic rolling stock, along with a 105-foot turntable. Inside the museum are 3 floors of exhibits. The first floor deals with the history of Altoona, its role as a company town, and why the Pennsylvania Railroad chose to put its repair shops here at the foot of the Allegheny Mountains.
This ain't no public library. you want to read that magazine, you gotta buy it. So where was I? Oh yeah, we call boys and messenger types. We got to know Altoona like the back of our hands. All the different train yards and shops and, oh man, all the neighborhoods.
The second floor deals with the everyday life of railroad workers and their families.
So his wife came down, they said their goodbyes, the priest came down and prayed for him, and then they had to open them up. Everybody said it was horrible. But he died instantly, just as soon as that engine pulled forward.
And the third floor is dedicated to the Pennsylvania Railroad itself. The Norfolk Southern Main Line through Altoona runs adjacent to the museum grounds. You can easily walk over there and do a little rail fanning. Here you see an eastbound coal train. Two pedestrian bridges cross the tracks here for great overhead views of the trains. These Norfolk Southern locomotives are returning to Altoona Yard after helping a train ascend Horseshoe Curve. Okay, those are the things I did in Altoona, but there were a couple of other things I would like to have done, but didn't. I didn't ride on the Everett Railroad, which operates excursion trains from Hollidaysburg, just 3 miles south of my hotel. I didn't railfan at Altoona Works, a complex of railroad shop facilities, nor at Altoona Yard, also known as Rose Yard. And I didn't get to Todd Treaster's open house during N-Scale weekend, although he invited me. Fortunately, I have visited Todd's layout twice during previous trips to Pennsylvania. His layout and collection of N-Scale rolling stock are the most amazing things I've ever seen. I will put a link to my video about my second visit to Todd's layout down below so that you can see it for yourself. This video has well over 300,000 views. And I didn't get to day 2 of N-Scale weekend. So I need to go back to Altoona to do these things and to redo some of the things that I did do. On Monday, September 19th, we drove 2 hours east through the beautiful mountains of Pennsylvania to spend 3 weeks with Mom. But unlike previous visits, I didn't have much of a chance to do rail fanning during this visit. Although I did enjoy watching this local freight passing by Mom's house twice a day. Here it is on a cold and rainy October day. First northbound, and then southbound. And I also didn't have a chance to visit club layouts as I normally do. For example, the West Milton Model Railroad Club, where I always hung out with friends during previous visits, sadly had to dismantle and move their layout just before I arrived due to a change in ownership of the building where the club's layout had been housed for years. But I would like to thank my friend Gary Leach for this club hat. Now, in case you've never seen my layout, just click on this video over here to see how I put it all together. I'm Roy Smith. Until next time, happy railroading.